Hey guys, my name is JC and today we are playing the Mono Blue Madman Memnarch. The goal of this deck is to ramp hard with artifacts, cast our commander, and then steal enough of our opponent's permanents to end the game. If you enjoy how this deck plays out, then make sure to stop by the channel where we have a deck tech discussing all of the included cards as well as the overall strategy. Let's see if stealing any permanent will be enough to take the game. Okay guys, let's see who we're playing today. We have got Aurelia, Exemplar of Justice. We have Isshin 2 Heavens as 1, so far 2 beta decks. And Pramikon Sky Rampart. Alright, so let's look at our opening hand. I'm normally happy to see Metalworker, but we have no artifacts in hand. We have a bit of interaction, but really no ramp, so we can't keep this. We'll have to mulligan it. Okay, this looks much better. We have Gilded Lotus, we have 2 pieces of turn 2 ramp, and Vedalken Engineer is really good with artifacts. So I think we can keep this one here. Isshin starts us off by playing a land for turn, and they just pass it there. Pramikon plays a tap land for turn, then they also pass the turn. We draw a land, so let's just play an island, and we'll pass the turn. Aurelia plays their land for turn, and it is a tap land, and they just pass it there. Isshin plays their second land, and now they cast a Sword of the Animist. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, and whenever it attacks, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. And that's it for them. Pramikon plays a land, and now they cast an Izzet Signet. And that's it for the Pramikon player. We draw an Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Well, that'll definitely be better as the game gets to the mid to late game. So let's play another island for turn, and then we'll cast out Vedalken Engineer, so we can hopefully get this Gilded Lotus out as soon as possible. And then we'll leave it there. Aurelia plays a land, and they end the turn there. Isshin plays a land, and now we see their commander come down, Isshin 2 Heavens as 1. Isshin says, if a creature attacking causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. And that's it for them. Pramikon plays a land for turn, they immediately sack it, and they put a land into play, and now they cast a Boros Signet, and then they follow that up with a Talisman of Conviction. So the Pramikon player is certainly ramping hard. And now they also cast a Wall of Omens when it ETBs draw a card. So that was quite the turn for them. And that's it for their turn. We draw a Resculpt for turn. So let's start by playing our island. Then we'll get down our Gilded Lotus. And then we'll use the Gilded Lotus to cast our Mind Stone. Now we do have a choice here to use the floating mana and use our Resculpt straight away to prevent the Isshin player from starting to ramp off a little too hard. But I think we will hold back in case they play a bigger threat. We are ramping pretty good at the moment, so even if they do have a good turn next turn, hopefully we can resolve our commander and start to steal things, or simply resolve Ugin to shut down most of the players. Now Aurelia starts by playing a land for turn, and then they cast Dragon's Approach. Okay, so we have a Dragon's Approach Aurelia deck here. And that's it for their turn. Well, I've never seen a Dragon's Approach be in an Aurelia deck, so it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. Isshin plays a land for turn. Now they play a Orzhov Signet. Now they move to equip the Sword of the Animist to their commander. Then they move to combat. They send in their commander our way. That triggers Sword of the Animist 2 times. We take the damage going down to 33, and that's the end of their turn. We'd be really happy to see Pramikon land this turn. Now they do start their turn by playing a land, and it is a Thespian stage, so they are going to be able to copy any land on the battlefield. Now they start by activating their Thespian stage, so it becomes a copy of Command Beacon. And then they cast a Lightning Greaves. Now they move to equip their Lightning Greaves to their wall, and that's it for their turn. We draw a Consecrated Sphinx for turn. Well, that definitely is interesting. So we'll at the very least start by playing our land for turn. Now getting down Ugin this turn would only really get rid of the Isshin, but it also gets rid of our Vedalken Engineer, which we might not want at the moment. It might actually be better to try to land our Consecrated Sphinx here and refill our hand. So we will. We'll start by doing that. We'll get down our Consecrated Sphinx. And that way we can also hold up our Resculpt as well, so if the Isshin does come our way again, or anything else scary lands on the board, then we can take care of it. So I think we'll just pass the turn there. Consecrated Sphinx triggers on Aurelia's draw step. So we'll draw 2 cards. A Swiftfoot Boots and a Thought Vessel. Well, the Swiftfoot Boots will be good for when our commander comes down. And having the no maximum hand size might be relevant if Consecrated Sphinx manages to make it back to our next turn. Now they start by casting Rip Apart, destroy target artifact or enchantment, targeting our Gilded Lotus. Well, we don't have any responses to that, so that will go through. And it looks like they're moving to their end step, so the Aurelia player has missed their land drop for turn, and they basically spent their turn trying to hold us back a little bit. Now when we move to the Isshin player's turn, Consecrated Sphinx triggers. We'll draw another 2 cards. A Drowning Dreams and a Bribery. Well, the Bribery I actually really like. We might be able to get something really good out of the Isshin player's deck. Isshin plays a land for turn. And now they cast an Inferno Titan. Well, that's probably lucky that we actually held up our Resculpt. Because if they target the ETB trigger onto our Consecrated Sphinx, then we'll definitely exile it before they move to combat. And they actually decide to target our Vidalcan Engineer instead. That'll go through. Now they also cast a Robber of the Rich. Whenever it attacks, if defending player has more cards in hand than you, exile the top card of their library. During any turn you attacked with a rogue, you may cast that card and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. So I think before they go to combat, we'll actually cast the Resculpt target in their commander. That way they won't be able to ramp any harder than what they already have. That goes through. So they just decide to pass through combat, and that's the end of their turn. Consecrated Sphinx triggers on the Pramikon player's draw step. Let's draw 2 cards. A Negate and a New Rock Stealth Suit. They play a land for turn. Now they activate their Thespian Stage, targeting the Winding Canyons. So it's going to allow them to pay 2 and tap so they can cast creature spells this turn as though they had flash. And now they cast a Windborn Muse. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. They equip their Lightning Greaves to the Windborn Muse. And then they pass the turn. We draw a Seagate Restoration. So we're unfortunately 1 mana off of casting that. That may have been the play to do. Even though we would have left ourselves open to the Isshin player. So we'll start by playing our War Room for turn. So let's start by casting our Thought Vessel. And then let's see what the Isshin player has in their library. Hopefully we can find something that's going to turn the game on its head. Okay, so let's see what the combat deck's got for us. Okay, so an Archon of Cruelty is pretty nice. Dockside Extortionist makes us a decent amount of mana. Drakaseth is actually really good as well. Atali, Goldspan Dragon can help us. So there's definitely a lot of good choices here, that's for sure. Sun Titan as well. Neheb can generate a lot of red mana. So this is quite a tough choice. We also have to make sure that whatever we choose can't actually get sniped off by the Inferno Titan. I think we might actually snag the Atali Primal Storm here. I've always been a big fan of Atali. I do like value. And hopefully we can keep stealing things off them. So let's take that and hope we can keep that around as well. But that's going to be our turn done. Consecrated Sphinx triggers on Aurelia's draw step. We draw 2 lands. Aurelia starts by casting another Dragon's Approach. So that'll be 3 damage to each of their opponents. That brings us down to 28. And it looks like they've missed another land drop again. So if they miss another one next turn, it's going to be pretty hard for them to get back into this game. And now we move to the Isshin player's turn. Our Sphinx triggers again. We draw a land and another mana rock. Now Isshin casts Blade of Selves. Well, that's actually quite worrying now. They move to equip their Blade of Selves onto the Inferno Titan. So they can definitely take out one of our creatures here. The question is going to be which one they're going to target. If we lose the Consecrated Sphinx here, it's not going to be too big of a problem because we have drawn quite a lot of cards already from it. We've definitely got more than our value's worth. Now they also equip the Inferno Titan with the Sword of the Animist. Now they move to combat. They send their Inferno Titan in our way. They will have 3 triggers on the stack. And they're targeting the 3 damage towards Atali. They'll also get a Myriad trigger as well. That puts 2 further Inferno Titans into play. They put 1 of the 3 damage hits onto Atali, so unfortunately we are going to lose Atali there. And then 3 damage goes straight to our face. Sword of the Animist will get him a land into play. And unfortunately we say goodbye to Atali there. Now Pramikon does block with their wall. We won't block at all, we want to keep our Consecrated Sphinx around. That takes us down to 18. At the end of combat, the 2 copies of Inferno Titan are exiled, and that's the end of their turn. Consecrated Sphinx triggers on Pramikon's draw step. We draw a Chromatic Ori, that's actually really nice to see. And now Pramikon casts Agitator Ant. At the beginning of your end step, each player may put 2 1/1 counters on a creature they control, go to each creature that had counters put on it this way. And finally they cast a Wall of Denial, a 0/8 with Defender, Fly-In and Shroud. Pramikon moves to combat, and they swing in their Windborn Muse at the Isshin player. They take the damage. Now they move to their end step and the Agitator Ant does trigger. We are going to elect to put the 2 1/1 counters on Consecrated Sphinx, because our plan is to wipe the board next turn anyway, so we'll hopefully hit the Isshin player with a big whack of damage, and then we will exile the board with Ugin. And that's it from the Pramikon player. We draw a Sky Diamond for turn. So let's start by playing our land. Then we're going to move to combat. And now we'll swing in at the Isshin player. They block with their Robber of the Rich. Now in our second main phase, we'll attempt to resolve our Ugin. That goes through. And now we'll -6 Ugin to get rid of that Inferno Titan. Unfortunately, it does get rid of our Consecrated Sphinx as well. But at least it buys us a little bit more time as our life total is starting to get lower. And we may even be able to keep Ugin around to start Lightning Bolting any problematic creatures. But that's going to be it for our turn. Oh, I really hope the Aurelia player hasn't missed another land drop. I mean, we are low on life, so we sort of don't want them to get too far ahead, but still, I don't want them to be out of the game either. And now they cast a Skewer the Critics. It deals 3 damage to any target, and they are targeting our Ugin. So we don't get to keep Ugin around, unfortunately. But they have moved to their end step, so it does look like they miss another land drop again. Well, that's really bad for them. I mean, they may get lucky in this game, and if we all target each other, they can just get a couple of Dragon's Approaches off and then end up sniping us all down. But at the moment, yeah, it doesn't look too good for them. Alright, so Isshin starts by playing a land for turn. And they look like they're tapping out for something big. A Hellkite Charger. Flying, and it does have haste, which isn't good for us. When it attacks, you can pay 7. If you do, untap all attacking creatures, and after this phase, there is an additional combat phase. And now they also cast a Marchesa's Decree. When it ETBs, you become the Monarch, and whenever a creature attacks you or a Planeswalker you control, that creature's controller loses a life. So on ETB, they do become the Monarch, which is going to be really helpful for them because they only have 1 card in hand. Now they move to combat. They send their dragon over our way. It triggers, but they won't be able to pay for its ability. So we go down to 13 life. And as they move to their end step, their Monarchy triggers and they get to draw a card. And that's it for their turn. Pramikon starts by casting a Shared Fate. If a player would draw a card, that player exiles the top card of one of their opponent's libraries face down instead, and each player may look at cards they exiled with Shared Fate, and they may play lands and cast spells from among those cards. Okay, well the game's definitely got interesting now. And that is it for their turn. So we're going to target the Isshin player, and we see a Swords to Plowshares. So let's start by playing our land for turn. Then we'll cast our Chromatic Orrery. That's going to allow us to tap for mana of any colour. Then we're going to tap our Chromatic Orrery for 5. We'll play the Sky Diamond for 2. We'll also cast the Prismatic Lens. And then we'll cast the Swords to Plowshares targeting the dragon because we know it's going to be coming our way next turn anyway. So that gains the Isshin player a little bit more life, but it does keep us in the game that little bit longer. Now at the end of our turn, we can also hold up 2 mana for a negate. So I think we're in a pretty good position now, provided no board wipes come down. So we're going to have to be very careful in what we actually cast this negate on. But if we get back to our next turn, we can resolve our commander, protect it, and then hopefully start stealing some things and have the game go our way. Alright, let's see if the Aurelia player gets a land this turn. They surely have to after all the draws they had where they didn't before. And now they cast an Ensnaring Bridge. Creatures with power greater than the number of cards in your hand can't attack. Well, that's a card that the Isshin player probably won't want to stay on the battlefield for too long, especially as the game goes longer. And they move to their end step, so they do miss another land drop again. It's really, really unfortunate for them. Okay, so now we move to the Isshin player's turn. Okay, so it looks like the Isshin player is tapping out big for something else. Let's just hope whatever it is, it doesn't have haste. And we shouldn't have jinxed ourselves. It is a creature with haste, Hell Rider. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it deals 1 damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking. Now they also cast a Fervent Charge. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So we'll take 3 damage plus the 4, 5, 6. We'll be cutting it pretty close here if we do let it through, but I think we do. It's going to be more devastating if there's a Vandal Blast overloaded as opposed to some damage. We're just going to be going really low here. Now they move to equip their Sword of the Animist onto their Hell Rider. They move to combat. They swing in their Hell Rider our way. Sword, Fervent Charge, and Hell Rider triggers. So we take 1 damage from the Hell Rider trigger. It buffs itself up to a 6/6. And now they search their library for a basic land card and put it into play tapped. We take the damage going down to 6. And now they move to their end step and their Monarchy triggers and they draw a card. And that's it for their turn. Pramikon actually starts by casting a Dragon's Approach. Well, we weren't expecting that. Now the question is, do we negate this because our life total is getting really, really low here? I mean, if they have more Dragon's Approaches, it's not going to matter in the end, so we'll let the first one go through. That does take us dangerously low. Now they tap their Thespian Stage, and now it becomes a copy of War Room. So they might be looking to draw cards. And that is the end of their turn. Alright guys, well a lot's going to happen this turn. We're dangerously close to death. I'll target the Isshin player again. We just get a Bajuka Bog. And we might actually play that to get rid of all the Dragon's Approaches in the Aurelia player's graveyard. So that does get rid of the small possibility of that being a problem for us. Okay, now from there, let's tap our Chromatic Ori. And let's try to resolve our commander. That goes through. Now we can do Memnarch's ability at instant speed. So what I think we'll do is we'll pass the turn here. When it gets to the Isshin player's turn, we'll wait for them to play out any creatures and they'll be untapped. So if we need to, we can steal one to block and then hopefully start getting ahead. But truth be told, just one more Dragon's Approach and we're out of the game. So we may need to hold up the negate just to stop that from happening. So it's going to be pretty tough for us to take this game, to be honest, just being on such a low life total. So let's just pass the turn there. Aurelia finally finds a land for turn and does play it. And now they cast their commander, Aurelia, Exemplar of Justice. It has Mentor, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, choose up to one target creature you control. Until end of turn, that creature gains +2/+0, gains Trample if it's red, and Vigilance if it's white. And that is it for their turn. Isshin starts by casting a Flame Break. Flame Break deals 3 damage to each creature without flying and each player. Creatures dealt damage this way can't be regenerated this turn. Well, that is going to kill us if it goes through, so unfortunately we have to pop off our negate now. And after that, we're left wide open to any Dragon's Approaches from Pramikon or Aurelia now. They are attempting to move to combat, so we are going to transform their dragon now into an artifact. Then we're going to attempt to gain control of it. That goes through. So now they have to move through their combat phase. And then they recast their commander, Isshin 2 Heavens as 1. They move to equip their Sword of the Anime to their commander, which they can do because we only stole the creature, we didn't actually steal the equipment. And now they move to their end step and they draw a card. And that's it for their turn. Now they start by activating their War Room. Now they play a Lightning Greaves, so they will have 2 sets of boots on the ground. And that is the end of their turn. Alright, well we survived to our turn. So I'm not saying things are looking up just yet, but they are looking a bit better. We'll target Isshin once again. We just get a land off of them. Okay, so we'll start by playing our land for turn. Then we're going to play our Swiftfoot Boots. We'll move to equip it to our commander. And that goes through. So that'll leave us with 15 mana, which will potentially be 2 activations if we're stealing any permanent. And we might need that, both for Isshin as well as Aurelia. And I don't think we can risk attacking at the moment, so I think we're just going to pass the turn there. Aurelia just moves straight to combat, and they swing in at the Isshin player. So that's good for us, that doesn't force us to have to steal Aurelia. That triggers Marchesa's Decree, and that actually causes the Isshin player to scoop. Well, that's definitely going to give us a lot of breathing room now because they were the ones that were seriously putting pressure on us. Now they do gain the Monarchy, so Aurelia is going to draw a card on their end step. And that is the end of their turn. Now Pramikon does get into another Dragon's Approach from the Aurelia player. So we're in trouble here. We're going to have to try to dig for an answer. So now we're going to use our Drowning Dreams, which will hopefully dig us into the answer. So we're going to choose us to draw X cards. So we got to hope we draw into a counterspell here. X is going to currently be 9. And it's all on the line here, guys. If we don't get the counterspell, we are out of the game. But it looks like they have a response. Can they counter our Drowning Dreams? But they respond by activating War Room to draw a card. So they may be hunting for some form of interaction, maybe something like a Tybalt's Trickery or a Red Elemental Blast. And they actually get a Pact of Negation. Well, that's the answer they needed. That's unfortunately going to get us right here. So well done to the Pramikon player. Would have been nice to see what we could have drawn off the Drowning Dreams, but that is the way it goes sometimes. So we are going to go down here with a Dragon's Approach. We put up the best fight that we could. So now it's only 2 players left. Now Aurelia starts by casting a Talisman of Creativity. And now they also cast a Felwar Stone, so they're finally getting into mana. Hopefully they'll be able to get themselves into the game now. And being a 1v1, with Pramikon having only 1 card in hand, I actually have faith in the Aurelia player. They might actually come through this. Now they move to combat, that triggers their commander. They swing in, and Aurelia is a 4/5. Damage goes through, and now they move to their end step and they draw a card. Pact of Negation triggers on Pramikon's upkeep, so they have to pay 5 or they lose the game. And Pramikon starts their turn by finally casting their commander, Pramikon Sky Rampart. A 1/5 with Flying and Defender. As it ETBs, choose left or right. Each player may attack only the nearest opponent in the chosen direction and Planeswalkers controlled by that opponent. So unfortunately in this 1v1 situation, Pramikon is in its weakest position. They move to equip their Lightning Greaves to their commander. That goes through, and now they move to their end step. Aurelia plays a land for turn, then they crack their fetch, and they put a land into play, and now they cast Angroth's Marauders. If a source you control will deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. Okay, well the Pramikon player's definitely got a clock on them now. They do immediately block with their commander, so Pramikon does go down, and now they move to their end step and they draw a card. And we go to the Pramikon player's turn. Pramikon starts by activating War Room to draw a card, but they just pass the turn over to the Aurelia player. Aurelia starts by casting a Clever Impersonator. Well, I think we're going to see a second copy of Angrath's Marauders here, and we do. Well, that is going to be some serious big damage. The Pramikon player really needs to have some interaction in their hand, otherwise they're in real big trouble here. So now Aurelia moves straight to combat, and they do. They have some interaction in the form of Lightning Bolt, and they are casting it just at the Aurelia player's face. So unfortunately, a Lightning Bolt wouldn't get it done against Aurelia. She's got too much toughness. Now Aurelia just swings in with their commander, and we have a response from the Pramikon player, it looks like. And now they cast a Deflecting Palm. The next time a source of your choice would deal damage to you this turn, prevent that damage. If damage is prevented this way, Deflecting Palm deals that much damage to that source's controller. Wow, well, the Pramikon player has certainly had the right answers at the right time in this game. No doubt about that. So that's got to be a bit of a shock to the Aurelia player there. But now the Aurelia player has a response, and they cast Boros Charm. Now, I don't know what mode they actually elected to do there. Oh, it looks like they actually chose to do the 4 damage to target player, so that takes them down to 4. So this turn has definitely had some big plays from both players. And now they move to their end step and they draw a card. Now, Pramikon starts by activating their War Room. Are they lucky enough to find another answer? They just play a land for turn, and then they recast their commander, Pramikon. Now they move to equip their Lightning Greaves to their commander, and that's it for their turn. Well, it looks like after all the trouble that the Aurelia player had early in the game, they managed to be the ones that came out in the end and took it. And well done to them, because they were in a pretty horrible position at the start. So to be able to come back like that, I think this game here really demonstrates why you should never give up. Because sometimes you just can manage to get through it with all the other players when they start focusing each other. You can end up taking the game. And these are the games that you always remember, that you always love to talk about and reminisce on. So now they cast an Inferno to finish the game off. Inferno says it deals 6 damage to each creature and each player. Well done to Aurelia, and that was a good game overall. Let's go to the wrap-up and discuss what happened. So this game right here is why Commander as a multiplayer format can be so much fun. You can have a player who is severely behind manage to fight their way back to the top and then take the game, which would almost never happen in a 1v1 environment. Now, how did this manage to happen? Well, it was only really us and the Isshin player that were developing a strong board state, and so because that was the case, we were keeping our eyes on each other, and we were trying to keep each other in check. This resulted in our life total getting dangerously low, and the Isshin player conceding once they felt they didn't have a chance in the game anymore. But the Pramikon player then capitalized on this, casting a well-timed Dragon's approach with counterspell protection, which was enough to take us out of the game. But then, what the Pramikon player didn't count on was how difficult it would be to actually take the Aurelia player out once we were gone. Because they missed so many land drops in the early to mid game, they actually kept their hand relatively full, and that was the advantage they needed to win the game. Well, that's it for today's video. I hope it was enjoyable to watch, and it's something that I think you can pull out in case you have a friend who may just tend to scoop a little bit earlier than they should. Until next time, guys.